Really? Who knows why? Wait. Now sound. I'm going to put back the mic. Hold on. Reasons which I don't understand. Something works one day and the next day it doesn't work. And I think it's astrologically a bad time for technology. Okay. I have another mic. I'm trying to use another mic which was simpler. I didn't have to wear it. But why it's not working, I have no idea. And now you can hear me? Okay, now, yeah, you're gonna hear me better in a minute. This is the weird world of technology. You do the same thing one day, it works. You do the same thing the next day, it doesn't. Just so. About now. This is just the phone without any mic. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Then, so now there's nothing plugged in. Then it's an internet problem. Hare Krishna. Now audio, yes or no? Now yes. Wow, that's amazing. I think something went wrong with my phone. Yesterday, we did a video for 2 hours. I don't know, maybe it burned out the phone. That or it got dirty or something. That's strange. Hare Krishna. Usually I use a microphone. The sound quality is better. And it's not working. Who knows why. So, Kamaniya 6232. Going to begin reading. Anyway, all this is giving all the latecomers time to get on. So I'm going to move closer because if I'm closer to the phone, it sounds better. Yes? Hare Krishna. It works now, yeah. It works now because there's no microphone plugged into the phone. It's just working. Okay, this is entitled 6232, entitled Changing Our Names Helps Us Remember Krishna. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we therefore change a devotee's name to a form that reminds him of Vishnu. If at the time of death the devotee can remember his own name, such as Krishna Das or Govinda Das, he can be saved from the greatest danger. Therefore, the change of names at the time of initiation is essential. The Krishna conscious movement is so meticulous that it gives one a good opportunity to remember Krishna somehow or other. So I want to read one statement here, which is quite interesting. If at the time of death the devotee can remember his own name, such as Krishna Das or Govinda Das, he can be saved from the greatest danger. That's interesting. So a little side point, that when we are initiated, it's called, Pancha Samskar. Pancha Samskar, one of the Pancha Samskars, 5 Samskars. One of them is you change your name. Of course, you get your mantras, and you brand your body if you're Ramanuja Sampradaya, or if you're Gaudiya Vaishnava, you get tilak and tulsi beads. And so Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that it's essential to change your name. And I had some devotees who were initiated, but their guru had left ISKCON and their guru never changed their name. Then they left that guru and they asked me, should we be reinitiated? And I'm not so inclined for reinitiating. And then I said, but she didn't give you a name. And they said no. And then I went up and I looked in Prabhupada's books. He said it's essential that the name is changed. So then I realized that you actually weren't properly initiated. And they hadn't taken their vows for 16 rounds, I don't believe. So that was a decision I made. So the name must be changed at the time of initiation. And so Prabhupada says, this is so interesting. The Krishna conscious movement is so meticulous that it gives one a good opportunity to remember Krishna somehow or other. So in other words, Prabhupada's saying, we will create arrangements for you to remember Krishna in any situation, somehow or other, in any situation. And changing your name is one of them. So, again, this underscores the point that we've been making all along. Krishna consciousness is meant to prepare you for leaving your body in Krishna consciousness. So, whatever we can do to help that, we do. And then Prabhupada is saying that in a sense, Prabhupada is saying everything we're doing in the Krishna conscious movement is going to help you die in Krishna consciousness. But now we're going to go on to the next quote. If you go down, Kamini, if you've downloaded the new document I sent, then we will go to the 6th canto, 2nd chapter, text 49. This quote and subsequent quotes that we'll read, hopefully we'll have time to read them today, are talking about how by practicing devotional service, automatically Krishna prepares us. Does a devotee have to be initiated to reach Goloka Vrindavan? Yes and no. It's better. It's not like, if you're chanting 16 rounds following the 4 principles, in a sense, then you're following Prabhupada and you have shelter of a guru, then, the initiation then becomes a formality. So you're doing everything right. It's recommended when you're ready. Okay, so let's go back up a little bit. Kamini has the verse. 13, 8 through 12. No. 6:249. 13, 8 through 12. That's like way back 3 days ago, I think. No, it's the new document. Did you get the new document I sent? It's the Srimad Bhagavatam 6th canto, 2nd chapter, text 49. You can be initiated and not go back to Godhead. Because to be initiated actually means not to sit in the ceremony, but to follow the Guru. So anyway, I'm going to begin reading this. I've titled this Saved at Death by Past Devotional Activities. This is on page 11 of the new document. Copy the wrong doc here. Okay. It's the PDF and it's the new doc. So now we're in the 6th canto. So 6th canto is the story of Ajamil, and Ajamil's story is very interesting because it glorifies the power of the holy name. So this is the translation, and I'll begin reading even though it's not up on the chat. This is Ajamil speaking. Were it not for my past devotional service, how could I, a most unclean keeper of a prostitute, have gotten an opportunity to chant the holy name of Vaikuntapati when I was just ready to die? Certainly it could not have been possible. So Ajamil is reflecting on his fortune. He said, so he's saying, look at me. I was keeping a prostitute, but somehow or other I ended up chanting the name Narayan at the time of death. How could such an amazing thing happen to me? And in my earlier life I did devotional service. So he's saying I was saved by my devotional service. So he's realizing that. So if you know the story of Ajamil, then you know that when Ajamil was chanting Narayan, he was not thinking of Krishna. He was just chanting the name of his son. But in a lecture that I attended, Prabhupada said that Krishna inspired him to give his son that name. And he was always chanting Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. And we're going to read some very interesting information about why this was effective. Because, so many people have spiritual names. And we don't see that they're making advancement by reciting their name or reciting the name of their friends. What I sent today begins with there's hold on a second, because we want you all to be able to see this. So I want to check the doc that I sent. So bear with me one moment. Okay. Yeah, that's bogus that it starts with that. But I want to see if, okay. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. How does this document end? No, but if you go down to you just go down, you'll find that it starts later, but if you go down, you will find what we're reading. Page 11. Just go to page 11 in that doc, 6249. It's there. Yeah, it's there. Just go down to page 11 and you'll find it. If not, I can send it again. Okay, so this is the purport. The name. So in the verse, Ajamil says, I've gotten the opportunity to chant the holy name of Vaikuntapati when I was just ready to die. How could that have happened? I'm so fortunate. So Prabhupada said, Krishna inspired him to name his son Narayan. And ultimately it's because he did all this devotional service when he was younger, so Krishna was taking care of him. That's what we understand. So he's chanting Narayan, and I'm shining, yes. It's not sunlight back there, it's my effulgence. hitting all around. It's actually what's happening. So Krishna inspired him, because of his devotional service, he inspired him to give his son the name Narayan, so he'd always be chanting Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. And even though he wasn't consciously chanting Narayan, he was purified by that chanting. And now Ajamil's reflecting, he said, it must be because of my past devotional service that all this happened. And so that's the point of this verse, that if you engage in devotional service, there's so much protection by Krishna that even you're an Ajamil, you become a thief and a sex monger. But because you did devotional service, Krishna says, okay, I'm going to make an arrangement where you're going to get purified because you're going to be chanting all the time. So let's read the purport. The name Vaikuntapati, which means the master of the spiritual world, is not different from the name Vaikuntha. Ajamil, who was now a realized soul, could understand that because of his past spiritual activities and devotional service, he had gotten the opportunity to chant the holy name of Vaikuntapati in his horrible condition at the time of death. So Prabhupada once said, if you forget Krishna at the time of death, Krishna will remember you because of the service you've done. So that's quite reassuring. And here's an example. Krishna made this arrangement for Ajamil because the understanding is, and Prabhupada mentions in many places, that at the time of death, it's such a difficult time that to be able to chant or remember Krishna is difficult. But at the same time, there are many purports from Prabhupada says it will happen if you're a devotee by your past devotional service. Krishna will arrange this, and so that's what we're seeing here, that Krishna had arranged for Jamil. I mean, it's amazing. Isn't that amazing? You can chant the name of Narayan at the time of death, to chant the name of Krishna. That's fortunate. So now, if we go to the next thing, Kamaniya, right below that supplementary note to this chapter. This is a little long, but it's so interesting because it glorifies the position of the holy name in relation to what we're reading about Jamil and how he became so degraded, but at the same time he became purified, and how that happened. And this is by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He's answering some doubts we may have. So I thought we should discuss this. I think you'll like this. Someone may say, so it begins supplementary note to this chapter. It's just right underneath. Kamaniya will put it up in a moment. Yes. Someone may say, quote, it may be accepted that by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one becomes freed from all reactions of sinful life. Okay, we've heard that. So we can accept that. However, if one commits sinful acts in full consciousness, not only once, but many, many times, he is unable to free himself from the reactions of such sins, even after atoning for them for 12 years or more. So this question is being posed. If you chant the holy name, you become free from sinful reactions. But if you consciously commit sin, then even if you atone for years and decades, years and years, so Kamaniya put it up, years and years, you can't become free. So then the question is raised, how is it possible then that simply by once chanting the holy name of the Lord, one immediately becomes free from the reactions of such sins? In other words, conscious sins. We hear that if you consciously commit a sin, it's offense to the holy name. We also hear if you chant one holy name, you can become free from sin. But we don't hear that you become free from sin if you're consciously committing sin. And we know you can't even become free from all those sins by doing atonement for years and years. So how is it that Jamil, he was so sinful, he was so degraded, how is it that he became free by just chanting one Narayan? He became free from all the sins that he did. It doesn't make sense, because these sins that he committed were conscious, they weren't accidental. And we always hear, well, if you accidentally commit a sin, then the chanting of the Maha Mantra will purify you. But you can't consciously commit sin. So that's the question. Good question, right? You like that question? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur replies by quoting verses 9 and 10 of this chapter. This chapter is what we just read, chapter 2 of the 6th canto. Here are the verses. Quote, "The chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is the best process of atonement." Now listen to this. This is pretty intense. It's the best process of atonement for a thief of gold or other valuables, for a drunkard, for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills, not just kills, but kills a Brahmin, or for one who indulges in sex, not just sex, but sex with the wife of his guru or another superior. It is also the best method of atonement for one who murders, not just anyone, women, the king or his father, not just anyone, but your father or the king, for one who slaughters cows, not just any animal, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons may attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who therefore considers, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection. Very interesting. And there's also a verse like that, where Lord Rama says, anyone who calls out to me, I will give protection. So Krishna, what this verse is saying, or Krishna is saying, I'll give protection. It doesn't matter what they've done. But if they call out to me, I'll give them protection. And so then you might say, well, Jamil wasn't really calling out to Krishna. He was just calling his son, who happened to have the name of Krishna. But because of his devotional activity, Krishna took it that he was calling him. Let's continue reading. One may atone for sinful life and vanquish all sinful reactions by chanting the holy name, although this is not called atonement. Ordinary atonement may temporarily protect a sinful person, but it does not completely cleanse his heart of the deep-rooted desire to commit sinful acts. Therefore, atonement is not as powerful as the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. In the Shastras, it is said that if a person only once chants the holy name and completely surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord immediately considers him his ward and is always inclined to give him protection. This is confirmed by Sridhar Swami. Thus, when Ajamil was in great danger of being carried off by the order carriers of Yamaraj, the Lord immediately sent his personal order carriers to protect him. And because Ajamil was freed from all sinful reactions, the Vishnu-duta spoke on his behalf. Now, someone reading this may wrongly think, well, I've done devotional service, so now it doesn't matter if I do more devotional service, because Krishna's going to come and save me at the time of death, and he'll arrange that I chant his name, so now I can just enjoy my life. And we had discussed this yesterday. It's really a bad way to think, because human life is not like a process of trying to buck the system or cheat the system. Or like, how can I go back to the spiritual world and do as little work as possible? And how can I kind of get around it, cheat on the test? They say, well, look at this. what we're reading here, this is good news, because I don't have to do so much austerity and sacrifice and so forth. I can just, work off my past devotional service, what I've done so far, and it looks like Krishna will protect me. And somehow or other arrange that I'll be able to chant his name or in some way protect me. But that misses the whole point. This story is there to glorify the holy name. This story is not there for us to do what a Jamil did. Hey, this sounds good. Let me go out and get my own prostitute and, just go out and rob people. And it's okay because Krishna protected the Jamil. So let me enjoy life and he'll protect me because I lived in the ashram for 5 years. So now everything is good. That's not the reason this story is presented here, to give you like alternatives to buck the system and still go back to Godhead. The story is there to glorify the power of the holy name. And if we think, like one devotee wrote me yesterday, and she said, I read that if you wear Tulsi beads, the Yamaraj, the Yamadutas won't come to you and you'll go back to Godhead. So I stopped chanting Hare Krishna because I don't like chanting Hare Krishna anyway. So yeah, that's like not a good idea. But you understand the mentality. The mentality is, I just want to go back to Godhead somehow or other. And, if I don't have to chant 16 rounds and do this and that, if I can just wear Tulsi beads, that's good enough. Then, why put myself in anxiety? Yeah. But the point is, Krishna consciousness, it's not executed. The primary reason we execute Krishna consciousness is not to go back to Godhead, it's to please Krishna. And it's not to figure out what's the least we can do and go back to Godhead. That's what I did when I was a student. What's the least I can do and get good grades? It's exactly how I thought. How many classes do I have to go? How much homework do I have to do? What's the least I can do and still buck the system? Can I miss class? Can I get the notes from somebody else? That's how I thought. That Krishna consciousness is not like that. It's nothing like that at all. It's totally about pleasing Krishna. So this story is glorifying the power of the holy name and glorifying the power of bhakti. Not so we can take advantage and copy a Jamya, but so we can understand that we should be chanting all the time because the holy name is so powerful. So let's read on. I mean, don't you think that's funny? I stopped chanting Hare Krishna because I found out that I'll be protected if I wear Tulsi beads. I had to explain to her, not exactly like that. They'll say, the Yamadutas will say, oh, here's a devotee, they're wearing Tulsi beads. But maybe one of the Yamadutas will say, yeah, but it's a pretentious devotee, they don't chant. So don't be fooled by the neck beads. Yamadutas may say something like that. Okay, here's a devotee, they're wearing neck beads. Well, did they act like a devotee? Let's go look in the book, see what they've done. And as far as your question, Raphael, about the Jamil story, I never heard that. Jamil did not, there's no maybe, Raphael, there's no maybe. It's either in the Shastra or it's not. And he did not offer his sex to Krishna. He was just enjoying, so-called, with a prostitute. Offering sex to Krishna means to have children who you raise to become pure devotees. He fell from his Brahminical platform, so that's the point. His mind is clouded. So let's continue. So this is where it gets interesting. One may argue, quote, since he was constantly chanting the name of Narayana, how was it possible for him to be associating with a prostitute and thinking of wine? by his sinful actions, he was bringing suffering upon himself again and again. And therefore, one may say that his ultimate chanting of Narayan was the cause of his being freed. However, his chanting would then have been Nam Aparad. And then Prabhupada quotes the seventh offense. Nam no bala yasyahi papa buddhi. One who continues to act sinfully and tries to neutralize his sins by chanting the holy name of the Lord is a Nam Aparadi, an offender to the holy name. So the question being asked is, okay, we see the result, the Jamil was saved, but the seventh offense to the holy name is that you chant in order to become free from sins that you consciously commit. And knowing that I can commit this sin and become free from the reaction by chanting Hare Krishna. So the question is, okay, Ajamil was chanting Narayana, Narayana, but he was engaged in sinful activity. So how could he get purified by that? Wasn't that an offense to the holy name? So this is interesting. That's the question. In response, it may be said that Ajamil's chanting was inoffensive. How is that? Because he did not chant the name of Narayan with the purpose of counteracting his sins. He was just chanting the name of his son. He wasn't thinking, I've committed a sin. If I chant Narayan, I'll become free from it, so I'll continue to chant. He was just chanting Narayan innocently. That's all. That's all that was going on. It was nothing conscious. Here, he did not chant the name of Narayan with the purpose of counteracting his sins. He did not know that he was addicted to sinful actions. Nor did he know that he was chanting the name of Narayan. His chanting the name of Narayan was neutralizing them. You could say, how didn't he know he was addicted? So many people are addicted, they don't even know it's sinful. They just think it's normal. Thus, he did not commit a namaparad, and his repeated chanting of the holy name of Narayan while calling his son may be called pure chanting. So what Prabhupada is saying, he didn't know he was sinful. He wasn't chanting Narayan to become free from sin. He was just chanting, Narayan, come here, Narayan, bring me this, Narayan, do that, Narayan, I need your help. So he's chanting Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. And the Prabhupada is saying that this chanting, this is interesting, isn't it? He's saying this chanting is pure because he wasn't chanting to free himself from sin. That's interesting. Thus, he did not commit a nam aparad, and his repeated chanting of the holy name of Narayan while calling his son may be called pure chanting. It's like accidental pure chanting. Because of this pure chanting, Ajamil unconsciously accumulated the results of bhakti. Krishna Karshana, I'm not sure what you're asking. His fall down was accidental? No, his fall down was normal. But what Prabhupada means is he wasn't consciously committing, he wasn't consciously engaged in sinful activities with the thought that my chanting is going to free me from the reaction, so it's okay to do it. He was, Prabhupada saying, he didn't even know he was sinful. He was just a normal, degraded person. You know, like, how many people in the world drink alcohol every day? And if you ask them, are you an alcoholic? They'll say no. But by definition, they are, because they can't stop drinking every day. But they don't know it. And how many people do things that are wrong? They have no idea it's wrong. How many people going to McDonald's know that it's wrong? If they know it's wrong, they wouldn't do it. So Prabhupada's saying he didn't know what he was doing was wrong. Therefore, he wasn't committing sin on the strength of chanting. Yeah, Krishna, all the stories in Bhagavatam are arranged by Krishna, but Krishna's arranging them with people who will willfully do something that Krishna can utilize to teach. So it's not that the actors are innocent. The actors are willfully engaging. But because Krishna knows everyone's mentality, then he'll engage the actors according to their mentality to do what he wants them to do. That's how it works. So so Krishna knows how they're going to act, and then he engages them. So let's finish this paragraph and I'll take your questions. Because of his pure chanting, Ajamil unconsciously accumulated the results of bhakti. Indeed, even his first utterance of the holy name was sufficient to nullify all the sinful reactions of his life. Wow. To cite a logical example, a fig tree does not immediately yield fruits, but in time the fruits are available. Similarly, Ajamil's devotional service grew little by little. And therefore, although he committed very sinful acts, the reactions did not affect him. In the Shastra, because he's always chanting, so he's committing sin, but it's not offensive chanting, so he's continually purifying himself of the sinful reaction unknowingly. That's the power of chanting. In the Shastras, it is said that if one chants the holy name of the Lord even once, the reactions of past, present, or future sinful life do not affect him. To give another example, if one extracts the poisoned fangs of a serpent, this saves the serpent's future victims from poisonous effects, even if the serpent bites repeatedly. Similarly, if a devotee chants the holy name even once inoffensively, this protects him eternally. He need only wait for the results of the chanting to mature in due course of time. So Prabhupada gave the example of the fig tree, immature and mature. So he's chanting, and it's going to mature. The power of the holy name, a sinful person is chanting the holy name, but he's not committing offenses. So because he's not committing offenses, every time he chants, he's becoming purified of the reaction of those sins. So eventually, when he dies, this incident of him being saved was brought about by all that chanting. And he didn't even know he was chanting. That shows the power of the holy name and the mercy of Krishna. Is that amazing? Meditate on that. So the point underlying here, without Prabhupada saying it, is, well, if this is what happened to Ajamil, then just continue your Krishna consciousness and understand that Krishna will take care of you. He'll protect you. So let's go back a little bit. Is the mindset that I'm so impure I can never be Krishna conscious a way of giving excuses? Yes, 100%. What if, unless you're a pure devotee, you might think that way. But if you're not a pure devotee and you think that way, it sounds like a good excuse. What if someone can't tolerate how offensive they are and become very discouraged by that? Then, as soon as you become discouraged, then your spiritual life will suffer. So you have to find ways to be encouraged. If you can't tolerate, if you're not perfect and you can't tolerate it, it's a psychological problem. It's not a spiritual problem. And it's just now, it's affecting you spiritually. But it sounds like you have to be perfect. And if you're not perfect, you can't tolerate yourself. And then you become discouraged. And then why chant Hare Krishna? Because I'm not perfect. That's just a psychological, I don't want to say problem, but for lack of a better word, I'll use problem. It's a psychological reality that works against you. Does that make sense? You can say, I'm so impure that I can never be Krishna conscious, but I challenge you, I will bet as much as you want, that you cannot support that statement in Shastra. So because you can't support that statement in Shastra, that your mindset is wrong. And so you're thinking in the wrong way. And because you're thinking the wrong way, it's not going to help you, but it's going to harm you. There's nowhere in the Shastra says, no matter how impure, and one is he can be purified. We just read you could kill your father, your mother, you could kill cows, you could kill Brahmins, you could even have sexual affairs with the wife of your guru. You do so many things, and the holy name will purify you. So your statement is not supported, and so we shouldn't allow our minds to think of things that, number one, work against our Krishna consciousness, and number two, have no support anywhere in our teachings. So that would be foolish. Now, if that's the way your mind naturally thinks, then you need to work on that. You need to understand you have probably a need for perfection, and when you realize you're not perfect, you just think, well, what's the use of doing anything? That's like saying, well, I need $60,000 a year to live, and my job only pays $59,999. So I'm just not even going to work, because what's the use? Because I'll never pay all my bills if I get this job. It's like that stupid. I can never be Krishna conscious. So why try? And how do you know you can't be Krishna conscious? Have you spent your whole life trying? So you spend your whole life trying, and then you can say, okay, I can't be Krishna conscious. And then my question to you is, would you ever, at any point in your life, would you ever think you're not impure, no matter how advanced you are? And that could be possible also. That no matter how advanced you are, you'd still think you're impure, and you'd still think this way, and so you would just be harming yourself. So we talked about this yesterday, I think. Well, maybe it wasn't in this class. Maybe it was on Saturday. Yesterday. I was giving class, the class we were giving to the devotees in Australia, and I was telling them that whatever you're thinking, whatever you're believing, whatever consciousness you have to look at it and ask yourself, does this help me? Because there's so many things that we often think about or believe, or attitudes we have, they don't help us achieve what we want to achieve. So if you have a mentality and you can look at it and say, this mentality is destructive to me becoming Krishna conscious, then I have to change it. It's just Maya. Even though it might look like it's Krishna conscious, it's just Maya if it's not helping you become Krishna conscious. That's how we have to think. And so then we have to get into our consciousness and start working on it to change that mindset. Because any mindset which is harmful is foolish to hold on to. And if you say, I can't change it, then I say to you, you can. But if you say you can't, you won't. And here's the problem with what they say. If the mindset that I'm so impure, I can never be Krishna conscious, a way of giving excuses. Yeah, if you think that way, you won't try to be Krishna conscious because you feel it's useless. So why should I try? Right? That's the problem with that mentality. If you have any mentality that makes you think, why should I try? Then you've just destroyed yourself by one thought. Now, why would you want a thought that destroys you? You want thoughts that will enlighten you, push you forward like that. That's how we're supposed to think. Not allow thoughts in our mind that are going to destroy everything we want to achieve. Then you might say, well, it's just the way I think. Or this is just the way it is. No, you might say this is the way it is. And I would say, it's not the way it is, it's the way you think. And again, don't think in ways that work against you. Doesn't make sense. Raphael, I don't know if I should read what you write because you speculate too much. You have to follow the Shastra. Coming up with too many of your own ideas. I don't even want to read it because it's not. A Jama situation is just a unique situation to instruct us. It's not something we're supposed to follow. Connect my sinful activities to Krishna. No, stop your sinful activities. That's the idea. Okay, you have to satisfy your senses a little bit, not a lot. You have to satisfy your senses without being sinful. That's the point. Because Raphael is saying, well, we can connect our sinful activities to Krishna consciousness. No. It's like you're going to go out and kill a cow and connect that to Krishna consciousness. You're going to go break the principles and connect it? No. There are things that can't be connected because they're against our principles. So, yeah. Yeah, this is interesting. So Krishna Karshani is saying, if Jama were chanting Narayan to purify himself from his sins, that would be a sin. But his chanting was not considered offensive because that's not why he was chanting. So the mentality was different, but the action were the same. And because the mentality was different, the result was different. Interesting, right? So, are we supposed to go out and commit sin and not worry about it? And we chant Hare Krishna, but we won't chant to become purified from the sin? No. We make vows not to commit sin, because in order for Ajamil to achieve love of Krishna, he had to stop sinning. And so when Ajamil was saved, he was saved from his past sins. His life was saved. He should have died. And he was given a second chance. It's the book, Second Chance. He was given a second chance. So now he would go on and act properly and then develop love of Krishna. So the way Ajamil chanted Narayan, Narayan, it's not going to give you love of Krishna, but it'll free you from sin. But if you want love of Krishna, you have to chant consciously, not committing the offenses. So, but still, it glorifies the holy name by the result. Sadhupa said she stopped chanting because she was chanting offensively, or never started chanting. Yeah, well, you start offensive and you work your way up. You're not going to get better until you... Didn't Ajamil come back to do tons of austerity and service after being saved? But yeah, like, it wasn't that he went right back. No, he didn't. He was just saved from sins. Then he engaged in devotional service. Then he became purified. So the path was open. Krishna Kant says, I can't forget the sinful activities I did in the past. I wish I could. I think I'd be more peaceful. Hare Krishna. Well, if you can't forget them, use them to make you feel remorseful and regretful, so that you never do them again. So that way you can use them. I guess Krishna wants you to remember them so you feel bad about them, and so you don't do them again. At least that's the way we could take it. Like King Kulik Shakar, was it Kulik Shakar? he said, was it Kulik Shekhar? No. Maybe. One king, maybe Kulik Shekhar said, now that he'd become a devotee, he remembered his past sin, but it disgusted him. So if you remember it and it disgusts you, then that's good, because you won't want to do it again. We're missing you, Kate. Better late than never. So Marco's saying the best thing to do is continue chanting even if your chanting is not pure. Yes and no. The best thing to do is continue chanting purely. That's the best thing. And you say, I can't chant purely. I say, that's not right. You can. At least you can chant more purely. So that's the best thing to do. And then you say, well, what if I can't chant purely? Should I just chant? Yeah, you should just chant, but it's going to take long. It's like saying, okay, rather than not doing such and such a thing, I'll just do it wrong. It's better to do it wrong than not do it at all. Okay, I'm going to practice the piano because my mother told me to practice, but I'm not very good at it and it's too much trouble. So I'm just going to practice wrong. All right, so you practice wrong every day. So how's that going to help you? You're going to get really good at practicing, at playing the piano in the wrong way. So yes, chanting is pure and we should chant no matter what, but my experience is if you chant making offenses day after day, year after year, you're kind of embedding the habit to chant offensively. So I would be careful about that. And I know Shastra says to overcome offenses, just keep chanting. But those of us who've been chanting a long time have experienced that if you chant improperly year after year after year, then it kind of becomes ingrained as the way you chant. And so I would just caution that we shouldn't just say, just chant, because you could develop some very bad habits if you don't try to improve your chanting. And ultimately, to get love of Krishna, you have to chant purely. So, I think your idea is, well, if I keep chanting, it'll get better. That idea is there, but it's not 100% guaranteed. It could get worse. Because it depends on your mood, the mentality you have. Hare Krishna. Caitlin is happy to be reminded. Okay. I wanted to say thank you for giving practical applications of Bhakti philosophy. You said Bhakti empowers us to work on ourselves. Now I got inspired. Whoa. He said, Bhakti empowers us to work on ourselves, and I got inspired to analyze my 4 relationships that are hurting. It's amazing how just after asking a few pointed questions, what relationships are poor? These are the questions I asked all of you to ask, but Parker picked up on it. What relationships are poor? How have I contributed? What can I do to improve? All of my confusion and hesitancy became cleared up, and my bhakti practice itself became much sweeter and smoother. The power of looking at ourselves and putting in work to change our anarthas cannot be oversold or understated. Thank you so much. Yes. I don't know if you all remember, but he asked a question about relationships, and I asked him to do a few things. What you can do to improve, and why are they poor, how are they poor, what's causing that. So, thank you for that, Parker. Krishna Karshani says, out of being conditioned, we may tend to make the same mistakes, meaning we may regularly fall down for the same reason. And it may look like it's performing simple activities and chanting to purify ourselves. from the reactions. Accidental fall down means only once. Well, maybe a few times. Maybe it, not only once, but it's rare or occasional. It seems we can have many the same accidental fall downs, or maybe I'm wrong. Well, one wise man once said, it's okay to make mistakes once. Just don't make them again. Learn from them. So, in that sense, it's okay to make mistakes. Just make them once. But Prabhupada was asked this question about fall down. He said, I'm forgiving. I will forgive you. Once, twice, thrice. He said, but Krishna may not forgive you. So the point was, don't take advantage of it. But Ajamil's condition was different. Because as Prabhupada said, he didn't know he was sinful. And he wasn't committing sins thinking, I'm a devotee, I've been initiated, this is wrong, but I'm just weak and I can't help myself. And I would say to anyone who says they can't help themselves, I'd say you should do something to help yourself. That is the first order of business. So, accidental fall down here and there, that happens. But at some point in our life, we have to overcome these things if we want to make progress. And that we have to accept. Okay, it's difficult, it's a struggle, but I can't give up making the struggle. So if every time I fall down, I stand up with renewed enthusiasm, I become a little better, that's good. So maybe I fall down, or whatever you want to call it, I slip, I do something wrong. But maybe I was doing something wrong every month, now it's only every year. Maybe 10 years from now, it's only once in a decade. So that's how we want to go. If we're so conditioned and fallen that we say, I think these accidental fall downs are so strong that I don't think I can stop completely, then at least we should minimize them. We should improve. And, with some things, they have to be eliminated. The sooner the better if we're going to make advancement. Other things are smaller, but the progress means we have to get rid of them. And we can't think, Krishna will forgive me, I can just do whatever I want. That's up for him. That's for him to say. That's not for us to say. And I think that's a problem. We say it, but he may not say it. And we don't know if he's saying it. Of course, some accidental fall down, it's not the end of the world, but it can become debilitating if we're not trying to improve it. That's the point. If we just say, it's how I am and I can't get any better. Don't say that. I would say, this is how I am and I have to do something to get better. I have to figure out how to get better. If I say, this is how I am, I can't get any better, I would say, all you're saying is, I don't want to get better and I'm just making an excuse that this is how I am. And if that's the case, then how are you going to get better? Because you don't want to. Kosturi says, I think we cannot overanalyze. We need to just do it. Love is a word of action. Chanting is simple but not cheap. Take it one day at a time. We can you mean we cannot overanalyze it? We can't, because analyzing and doing it seem to be opposites. Yeah, how many times we get up? Yeah, that's the idea. Some of us are weak, but there should be improvement. We should see light at the end of the tunnel. For sure. And we can't use falling down that Krishna understands and forgives me as a continual excuse, because it won't improve us. All right, Krishna, we understand, but it's not what he wants us to do. He wants us to improve. So get up and improve. That's the idea. I have to read the questions. Now I'm on comedy. Okay, so I'll read names. I'll read names as I go down. Raphael. I am vegetarian. Meat is a dog food and I am not a dog. But a Jamil case is very interesting. There, his story could be a ways to overcome sex addiction, using sex addiction by offering to Ryan. Yeah, Raphael, you need your brain cleaned. Praying to Krishna help. No, it's not. You overcome the sex addiction by Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. You see, the problem is that anything you're addicted to, it doesn't get better by doing it. It gets better by regulating it. So anything you're addicted to, you want to get over it. You either have to give it up or regulate it. So, but you can't use the sex addiction and offer it to Krishna. And that's not what a Jamil did. He wasn't offering his sex addiction to Krishna. He was just helplessly fallen. And because we're reading today, because of his past devotional service, Krishna saved him. That's the message. He wasn't offering his, just like Bilva Mangal Thakur, he was going to see his girlfriend, Chintamani. He wasn't offering that. That's not offerable. You know, there are things you cannot offer to Krishna. You offer Krishna your sex within marriage to have children. But visiting a prostitute, it's not, you can't offer that to Krishna. It has to be something that Krishna has asked you to offer. That would be like offering meat to the deity. Well, I like to eat meat, so I'll offer it to the deity. No, it doesn't work that way. So, the way sex is utilized is the way Prabhupada taught us, not the way we make up. And what did he teach us? He said, get married. And why? Because in marriage, there's a father and a mother who will take care of the children. That's the way Krishna arranged it. It's responsible. And when there's no marriage, then sex is fun. When there's marriage, maybe it's fun, but not that much fun because you're having sex to procreate. It's responsible. There's ramifications. When you're not married and having sex, you're just having sex for fun with no ramification, committing sinful activity, either preventing the pregnancy or ending the pregnancy. So you don't become purified like that. The Jamil did not become purified by the sex. He became purified by calling his son. At least he was honorable enough to take care of the prostitute. He didn't just have unlimited prostitutes. Maybe off topic, Greg says, maybe off topic slightly, but just offering a simple message of hope to all those in the days of COVID and social distancing who, like me, find the time in which we are living to be unsettling and where are we? Unsettling, and it's oftentimes filled with dread and fear because of unseen enemy. Remember these words and realize that no matter the outcome or the tribulations that we experience along the way, that we will prevail victorious if we keep our focus on the lotus feet of Krishna. Yes, even if you die, you'll be victorious. Our unseen but omnipotent and omnipresent friend and ally. After all, Krishna has dominion over all creation. Therefore, it's the power over the unseen enemy we face. What are the offenses? You can find them on the internet. Just look for 10 offenses to chanting the holy name. Francis Marta Yogita says, I'm reading in Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, the only way to be elevated to love for Krishna in Kali Yuga is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the form of the Pancha Tattva. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must be sought as a first refuge by singing and dancing. He taught us these. Yeah. So keep chanting. It's our only hope. Shravaniya says, since I've been engaged, this is a verse. Is it Bilva Mangala talking? Jamuna Acharya. Since I have been I was responding to Krishna Kanta when she's saying, I wish I could forget my past sins. And then I was quoting this verse. And then Shravaniya has found it. So let's read it. This is how you're supposed to think of your past sins. Since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought and my lips curl with distaste. Purport to 521, quote from Jumanacharya. So, Krishna Kanta, you think of your past sinful activity, just think of it with distaste and it will detach you from it. You remember the other day we were saying, that anything you want to detach from, there has to be some association of distaste. Anything you want to attach to, there has to be association of taste. So a lot of devotees are detached from japa because they don't have a taste for it. They don't like it. That's the wrong thing to be detached from. And so anything you don't like creates detachment. Anything you like creates attachment. So we have to learn to like the things that help us become Krishna conscious and dislike the things that don't. And Param is asking, Ananda is asking, what about sex for fun and marriage? Yeah, so go to the database and search sex for fun in marriage. And how many hits do you think you'll get? 0, you're right, you will get 0. So I think that answers your question. Hare Krishna. You know, the thing is, if you want to become purified, you have to do things that are going to purify you. So if you want to chant and relish the pure holy name, if you want to understand Radha and Krishna's Leelas and enter into that nectar that's awaiting for you, then if you still engage in activities of lust of this world, you can't enter into that realm. So that doesn't sound like fun to me. It doesn't sound like fun to be blocked out of Krishna consciousness. So in the name of having fun, you just kind of minimize your ability to understand who is Radha and Krishna, because Radha and Krishna have nothing to do with lust. And if our life has to do something with lust, and we relish lust, then we cannot relish the transcendental love of Radha and Krishna. We won't understand it. We won't have access or much access to it, or the access will be limited. So by the very activity of fun, you just limited the real fun, which is to love Krishna. So it doesn't sound like fun to me, does it? So that's how we have to see it. Okay, you can do that, but what about now you don't get the pure holy name? So that was kind of a big trade-off. Now you don't enter into what is Radha Krishna Leela. You become like disqualified to enter into those deeper realms. And by entering those deeper realms, you relish something very special and sweet, which you cannot relish any other way. And you enter into a state of consciousness, which is very special. A state of attachment to Krishna, which is very special. And you can't enter it into while you're still trying to imitate. It's like you're blocked out. There's a curtain. It's just, you don't see it. And then the worst possible thing is you start seeing Krishna and the gopis like ordinary boys and girls, which is possible if we're still engaged on that level. So we have to be very careful. That's very, very important. I think a lot of devotees don't really see it that way. But if you just study our philosophy, it's very clear that that's how we should see it. You know, like when we're initiated, and Prabhupada's saying, these 4 principles you must follow, because if you don't follow them, how are you going to get to the stage of pure chanting? And if we're not advancing and our chanting's not become pure, then it's this endless loop where we become attracted to material activities and sense gratification. Then we engage in them, which then harms our ability to chant purely. And when we don't chant purely, we're more attached. And because we're more attached, we engage in more material activity. Because we engage in more material activity, our chanting goes down. Because our chanting goes down, we become more attached. And there's this like endless loop bringing us down. So if you see that loop, if you understand that loop, or maybe you can draw, some of you out there can draw a graphic and send it to me. This is the loop. It's like one thing makes the next thing harder to do, and because it makes the next thing harder to do, then you don't do it well, which then causes you to go down deeper. So I engage in sinful activity which affects the quality of my chanting. When my chanting is affected, I'm moving my finger. My chanting is affected, then my Krishna consciousness becomes weak. When my Krishna consciousness becomes weak, I tend to engage in more materialistic or sinful activities. When I do that, it weakens my Krishna consciousness. Then my Krishna consciousness is weak. My chanting is pure and not pure. My chanting is impure. My Krishna consciousness becomes weak. My Krishna consciousness is weak. My chanting becomes impure. My chanting becomes... You understand? So, if you call sex as fun and that's the result of it, then I don't think it's fun. I think it's more fun to not. I think it's more fun to chant the pure holy name. I think it's more fun to enter into the Leelas of Radha and Krishna. I think that's, in the universe, that's where the fun is. It's up there, it's not down here. And down here, the fun is sex. But up there, that's not considered fun. That's considered suffering. Up there, the fun is love. And down here, the fun is lust. So if you want lust, you want to replace that with love, that's your choice. But Prabhupada's teaching us how to enter that realm of love, and that's where we'll ultimately experience ecstasy and satisfaction. That's how we have to see it, because it's true. And I know maybe that sounds heavy and hard, and you weren't all clapping and raising your hand when I was saying that. You're probably all fainting, going, how could he say that? That's so insensitive. The only reason I can say that is because it's true. That's what our scriptures teach. So if we see it that way, then we're very careful in our actions, because we want to enter more deeply into Krishna consciousness, and more deeply into the holy name, and more deeply into understanding the Leelas, which are the real nectar. And in sinful activities, sensual activities, prevent us from understanding and going more deeply. So, sorry to rain on your parade, but that's our philosophy. Hare Krishna. So, now, what did Prabhupada say? If you want to have sex, get married, regulate it, have sex for having children. And then, of course, you can say, yeah, but it's so hard and everyone can't do that. Yeah, okay. It may be hard and everyone can't do it, but that's the instruction. For no matter how hard it is and no matter how many people can't do it, that's the instruction. And we try our best to follow, and by following that instruction, we become Krishna conscious, and by becoming Krishna conscious, we become happy. And by becoming happy, we can actually make other people happy, and we can teach by example. So Krishna Karshani says, you said to overcome weakness, addiction, we can do it by regulating. It's also related to sex. Some devotees may not be ready to have sex only for creating. They need to fulfill this. Yeah. Desirement? Yeah. Exactly. I totally agree. And I just wanted to reiterate to you the cost of it, the cost of the fun, what it cost you to do it. It cost you certain levels of your ability to enter more deeply into chanting and, So, weigh the pros and cons. And, yeah. Maybe, the thing is, I think there's a problem here. Not to deny what you said, Krishna Karshani, but there's a problem. When we're weak, the addiction to sex or the need for sex becomes stronger. When we're strong in Krishna consciousness, it weakens. So if we start in this platform that I need this, but the need is coming from weak Krishna consciousness, then we're already starting off on the wrong foot. So we're saying, well, not everyone's strong, not everyone can do this. Yet, when they're not strong, they can't do it. But Prabhupada wanted us to be strong. So let's start from the point of first focusing on our spiritual practice strongly. And then let's see how addicted we are and what we need from that point, not from the weak point. Say, well, I'm weak, I need it. That's not the right way to do it. No, get strong and see what you need. And see how much you can transcend and purify yourself. That's how we should do it. But if we go, well, I'm just weak, then what would Prabhupada say? Well, why are you allowing yourself to be weak? He said, I'm just weak, and then I'm making conclusions based on my weakness. That's not smart. Become strong, and then from there you can analyze, okay, let's see what I need. I'm in the optimal position in my spiritual life. I'm doing everything Prabhupada wants. I'm very serious about it. Now, how much do I need these things? Then you'll see you'll need them less, if not at all. That's more realistic. So that's what I would suggest. Hare Krishna. So Michael says, I looked up the 10 offenses. My question is, when I see a so-called devotee teaching a perverted version of Srila Prabhupada's teachings, do I expose that? Well, how do you know it's perverted in the first place? Maybe it's not. Maybe you don't understand it. Then expose it. You could talk to your local temple authorities and say, someone's teaching this. I don't know if it's correct or not. It seems incorrect. Can we discuss this? That would be a starting point. Kasturi says, this is an excellent time during the crisis to realize that there is not much time. We need to focus on our spiritual life now because tomorrow has no certainty. A very good point. We depend on Krishna and we need to communicate with him. Chanting is like calling. But when we don't focus on our chanting, then the reception or the airwaves are blocked and you cannot connect properly with Krishna. I was thinking, Kasturi, reading that, and we're talking about having fun. And I think, this is a very interesting reaction. A lot of times when things are difficult like this, people take shelter in sense gratification. So there's more drinking. I don't know now about more sex because you're supposed to be distancing. Maybe everyone's celibate now because of social distancing. But during difficult times, there's often more sinful actions. And so, for a devotee, now would be a time where we would think, okay, this situation is causing me to reflect on many things. And all the things that it's causing me to reflect on should be helping me in my Krishna consciousness. That's rather than thinking, well, is it okay to do this? And what about that? And, looking for all these loopholes so I can engage in sense gratification and still maintain my ticket back to Godhead. That's not the way a devotee thinks. Especially now, it's really strange to think that way, considering that many, many devotees and many non-devotees are becoming ill, and a certain percentage may not make it. And with this in the forefront and the potential of an economy collapsing, and who knows what's going to happen, I don't know about having fun is what you want to do. I think what you want to do is be more Krishna conscious. That's the way we should think. Thank you for that. Parker says, when I think about the austerities and service that I've already done, I tend to get proud and complacent when I consider the stages of bhakti that I haven't experienced. I realize how much work I've got to do, how much greater life can be. If you ever get proud, this is not just to you, Parker, but to everyone. If you ever get proud thoughts thinking I'm advanced, imagine you're sitting next to Sanatana Rupa Goswami. And we'll invite Takaharidas as well. And now reflect on that statement. I'm becoming proud of my service, my austerities. And you realize, compared to them, we're just like flies, So Sometimes I become proud because I'm comparing myself to someone lower than me, lesser than me, younger than me, not as capable. Yeah. Okay, so naturally I become proud. Compare yourself to the pure devotees, and then you'll see. It would be very difficult to be proud when you compare yourself to pure devotees. Raphael says, I had 3 weeks without sex addiction. I was really happy. Best 3 weeks of your life, Raphael, and peaceful. Sex addiction is not fun. It's a drug. Without daily activities cannot become done. This is really a tragedy. Yes, it is. Any addiction other than a spiritual addiction is a problem. Sex in marriage to make sin reaction. It's true or not? I'm not sure what you're asking. Sex in marriage means to have children. That's what it means. Strictly speaking, that's what it means. So there's sex for having children. It's Krishna says that's him. Sex for not having children, yeah, it's sinful. So do your best to control it and ultimately to give it up, because that's what needs to be done if you want to get out of the material world, because that's the thing that binds you in the world. So it just makes sense. If you can't give up the thing that binds you to the world, how are you going to get out of it? And so if you want to get out of the world, but you're bound up by something in the world, how are you going to get out? You got to detach from everything that's binding and attach to everything that's liberating. So if something is binding, even if it's fun and even I need it and so on, but it's ultimately the cause of coming into the world and cause of staying in the world, then we have to give it up. Or we have to regulate it. We have to control it through regulation. And marriage is the way to do it. And control it as best we can within marriage. Okay, so you might say, well, at least I do it in marriage. I don't do it outside of marriage. Yeah, it's the lesser of two evils. But it's still we want to go further. Krishna Karshani says, the not fulfilled sex desire also has a price. There are devotees who pretend not having sex and end up divorced. I hope you understand my point. Yeah. But two wrongs don't make it right. So I'm just stating what Prabhupada wants us to do. Now, if somebody can't do that, then it creates a problem, and compromising creates a solution. Yeah, we can say okay, but it's not really the way it should be done. What did you say? Devotees who pretend they're not having sex desire, end up divorced. Yeah. Well, it's a big issue. We could have another 100 classes on this topic. But my point is, whatever we say about it, my point is, it's what's keeping us here, and we better do something to learn to overcome it somehow or other, sooner or later, and sooner the better. The sooner you do it, the more deeply you'll go into Krishna consciousness, and the more you'll relish it. Hare Krishna. Yes, so Raphael is going to repent. Repent, sinner, and surrender to Krishna. Some may think sex one time a month is not bad. Yeah, for having children, it's not bad. But it's like all I'm saying is it's the lesser of two evils, but they're both evil. So choose your poison. I'm just repeating what Prabhupada said. I don't want to sound insensitive, and I don't want to sound like I don't understand the realities of, and I don't want to sound like I don't understand how difficult it is to control sex desire, and I don't want to sound like I'm totally ignorant of the fact of how so many grihastas have trouble maintaining the regulative principle and all that. I'm just stating the goal. This is what Prabhupada wanted, and I'm stating the consequences of not being able to do that. And so when we rationalize things, we sometimes draw imaginary pictures that are not real. So I understand that it's difficult for many people to control sex, and that sometimes regulating it in marriage, even if it's not for procreation, eventually helps them. I'm not denying that. But I'm just saying you have to know the price you're paying for it as well. And it's going to prevent you from moving as quickly towards Krishna as you could, and you could move much more quickly if you could control that. So Kamaniya says, thank you for the hard truth you delivered today. Hare Krishna. Well, yeah, it's time to go. Sometimes we need tough love, not sugarcoating. I appreciate your clarity. Yeah. So I'm not making any practical suggestions. I'm just explaining. This is how it is. So let's at least acknowledge how it is, and then you make your decision. How to deal with some devotees that like to show up instead of focus on Krishna. You mean who want to be honored instead of be Krishna? You have to explain that question. Who like to show up instead of focus on Krishna? Who like to be the center or get attention? Ask that question again. That was a question from Elemental. Para la vida. Elementals is what? Medicine, cure for your life. Para la vida, cure for the life. Herbs for life, cures for the life. Kasturi says, something I do daily is mentioned in the individual names of Guru, Brahman, and 6 Goswamis to help me, my Krishna consciousness. I don't understand. In the individual names of the Guru Parampara, 6 Goswamis. Yeah. Oh, you chant the names of the Parampara. Is to mention. Oh yeah, you chant the names of the Parampara. That helps. Grihasta Brahmachari, yeah. She means show off. Yeah, probably show off. Yeah, if somebody wants to show off. Hare Krishna. So the question, okay, if we say show off, how do we deal with devotees that like to show off instead of focus on Krishna? How do we deal with them? I'd have to see the devotee to tell you. But in some cases, you might just want to be more than 6 feet away from them, I guess. If you find it unpleasant. If a devotee is proud, it can really agitate our desire for pride. So we have to be careful around devotees who are proud. Sometimes it's like it makes us fight back. So be careful. Krishna Karshni is saying, you explained the sex issue from very high level. Most of us are not on that level. Yeah, but this follows the way Prabhupada did it. He would explain, this is the standard, this is the highest level. And that's what we aspire for. And the sooner we come to it, the better. And then we understand what happens when we don't come to it. What are the consequences? And so we have to explain it that way. And then that is meant to, clarify what we should be doing and to work towards that rather than rationalize. Because the problem is, well we can rationalize for lifetimes. Well, this is how I am and I can't do any better. But that's not true. It's not, maybe how you are today doesn't mean that's how you have to be tomorrow, and it doesn't mean you can't do any better. And Greg says, I'm too old. And you know what Prabhupada says about that? I'm too old for sex attraction. You know what Prabhupada says? Prabhupada says, no, don't ever think you're too old. Even at the time of death, you could be thinking about it. That's what Prabhupada says. So, just Greg, don't think this class doesn't relate to you. Prabhupada tells a story that's this king asked his, I forget who it was, he asked his minister, how long does sex desire last? And the king said, to the end of life. And the king said, no, it's not possible. And the minister said, yeah, I'll show you. I'll explain it to you. Someday I'll show you. And then one day he said, king, come quick, quick. We have to go visit so-and-so. He's in the hospital. He's dying. Bring your daughter. The king's like, what? He says, don't question. Just do it. And the king, he knows the minister sometimes teaches him lessons from life examples. So he says, okay. So they go to the hospital. They walk in. This man's lying on his deathbed, apparently. They talk to him and so on. And then they leave. And then he says, did you notice when we came in what that dying man looked at first? And he said, yes, he looked at my daughter. He said, you remember you didn't believe me when I said even up to the point of death, sexual thoughts are in the mind? And then the king said, okay, you got me on that one. You proved it. You showed it to me. So, yeah, like that. Yeah, sometimes devotees try to be the center and not put Krishna in the center. Yeah, that's called conditioned life. Birbal and Akbar, yeah, maybe. Okay, so we have to end. We went over time. So, yeah, I don't know how we got on this topic of sexual addiction, but it's a reality. But I would say to sum up this particular conversation, Prabhupada gives us standards. We can't deny the standards. We can't rationalize the standards. We can't come up with a new philosophy around the standards. We just have to face the reality. And I was just explaining the reality, that these regular principles are there to support the pure chanting. It's the pure chanting that will give us love of Krishna. And then how much we can follow or not follow, that we have to see, and what we have to do to come to that pure standard, we will have to see individually. But we should never rationalize that, well, it's okay, and we should never think, well, I can never do better. We should always try to do the best as far as possible. And that's the way we look at all the philosophy. And we understand the ramifications of not following and following, and then make our decisions the best we can. Yeah. And we're all human, and we have bodies, and we have to deal with it accordingly. So thank you. And so many questions. Yeah. Okay. Tomorrow we'll be back, same time, same station. Hare Krishna. Have a great day. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.